Good morning. Greetings from the Nancy Grasmick Building at the Maryland Higher Education Commission. We are here gathered for our monthly Maryland Higher Education Commission meeting. On behalf of all of us in person, we're going to have 4 commissioners in person, and I believe the other 7 are going to be online. We expect to have perfect commissioner attendance today. Just wanted to say good morning and Happy New Year. Here in person, we have Commissioner Thompson and Commissioner Warmack, and on the screen via Zoom, I think we have all of the rest of our commissioners. I see Commissioner Thompson, Commissioner Dukes, Commissioner Burnham, Commissioner Howe, Commissioner Robinson, Commissioner Tabor-Stalen, and we expect Commissioner Agu any minute in person. So we certainly have a quorum, and I think that in the next few minutes we will have all of our commissioners here. So good morning and Happy New Year to everybody. We will kick off the meeting with a call to order and remarks from me as chair and Dr. Rai, the acting secretary. A lot has happened in higher education since last we met in early December. As we expected, the federal government, the U.S. Department of Education, released a soft launch of the revised FAFSA in late December. There are still hiccups with the FAFSA that are being worked through by the federal government. There was an announcement as recently as yesterday that they're substantively changing some of the income requirements, allowing more students to be eligible. So I want to commend Mr. Dorsett, who's going to be presenting later, our Maryland Higher Education Commission Director of the Office of Student Financial Assistance. He's been working with students, answering questions. A lot of the questions really are related to the rollout on the federal side, but of course it affects many of our Maryland students. So Mr. Dorsett, we look forward to hearing from you later in the meeting about how things are going and the many things that you and your team here at MHEC are doing to adjust some of our deadlines and procedures because of the somewhat rocky federal rollout. I also want to note that with respect to things that have been happening in higher education since last we met, this past Friday, the legislative work group that was convened about a year ago, created by the legislature in the last legislative session to work on improving the academic program review process. The group on Friday had its final recommendations voted on by all of the work group members. This work group met over the summer into the fall for 5 months. It was a very committed group of professionals, including Dr. Rai and Dr. Dow representing MHEC. All of the higher education segment leaders were represented, and of course it was led by the legislature. So I want to give particular thanks to the co-chairs, Senator King and Delegate Smith, for leading the work group. There are 23 recommendations, all of them very solid, that I look forward to seeing the agency, Dr. Dow and Dr. Rai, and their team implement, and they will be reporting back to us as a commission over the next weeks and months. But I think that the agency is well positioned under Dr. Rai's leadership to implement the recommendations. I think all of us on the commission, many of us are new. We're just entering our 7th month of being commissioners. We were not present, nor was Dr. Rai when the work group was created. But I think all of us are embracing a spirit of transparency, consistency, and of course fairness as MHEC continues to strive to be a student-centered agency. This agency exists because of the students of Maryland, and these 23 recommendations of the work group I think will go a long way to advancing improved opportunities for Maryland students. So Dr. Rai and Dr. Dow, on behalf of all of us in the commission, thank you for your work on the work group, and to the legislature, and particularly Delegate Smith and Senator King, the co-chairs, thank you for your leadership of the work group. I'm now going to turn it over to Dr. Rai for his opening remarks. I did want to note that Dr. Rai recently lost his mother, who passed away in India. Dr. Rai actually just returned from India yesterday and is back in Maryland for this meeting and for some budget meetings tomorrow in Annapolis. He will be returning to India, but just wanted to pass on our deepest condolences, and also really admire your commitment to the work, coming back to Maryland just for a couple of days for these meetings. So, Dr. Rai, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair Martz, and thank you to everyone who have sent notes of condolences and sympathy, including Governor Moore and Lieutenant Governor Aruna Miller. I received their calls when I was in India. Very, very thankful to all my colleagues at MHAC, very supportive colleagues. During my absence for a few days, they took care of things. So I'm very, very thankful to them. Today's meeting, we have very rich agenda. It's not just the quantity of items, but the quality of items. Items like transfer pathways, academic program approval process, financial aid, student success data from different institutions. This all indicate that progress is being made in Maryland. Every day, institutions of higher education, in collaboration with our agency, our staff, I see progress here. And we want to continue to make those progress. So, Chair Martz, back to you.
Thank you, Dr. Rai. We do have a rich agenda, as the Secretary said, so we will turn to any public comments. I don't believe there are any today. I'm hearing no. Moving along to approval of the minutes. We have 3 different sets of minutes to approve. The first are the minutes from our September 13th, 2023 meeting. They were included in the packet that the commissioners received in advance. Do I have a motion to approve the September 13, 2023 minutes?
Madam
So
Chair,
moved.
I move
Thank
that
you.
the-
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
nays or abstentions?
Aye.
All right, the ayes have it. The September 13 minutes are approved. I think we separately need to approve the September 13th closed session meeting minutes. Do I have a motion for that, for the approval of those minutes?
I
So
so move.
moved.
So moved.
Any second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Any
Aye.
nays? Any nays or abstentions? All right. And then finally, our minutes from October 25th, 2023. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays
Aye.
or abstentions? All right, thank you. Our next agenda item focuses on MHEC's Department of Finance and Administration, Mr. Jeffrey Newman. We can hear you in person. I'm not sure your microphone is on.
Can you hear me?
We hear him now.
All right, I'll move over a little bit.
And before you start, sir, I just wanted to note for the record that we have 100% attendance. We have 4 commissioners present in person and 7 virtually present. So thank you to my fellow commissioners. This is a strong showing of your public service, and we appreciate your attendance. Thank you, sir. You have the floor.
Okay, for the record, I am not Jeffrey Newman. My name is Dan Schuster. I'm the Capital Finance Analyst here at MHEC and also the Program Administrator for the Community College Construction Grant Program. And the item I have today is an informational item related to that program, which of course is the vehicle through which the state provides aid to capital projects at community colleges. And that program is governed in statute and administered through MHEC. And one of the aspects of that program is that each of the capital projects requires the state pay a portion and locally a portion is paid. And the amount that is paid by the state, the percentage, is also set in statute. And the way that it's done is basically using the same methods that MSDE uses to figure out the percentage of state aid for K through 12 schools. And they have what's called the foundation program, which is the amount that the K through 12 schools should get annually based on enrollment. And they go ahead and calculate how much of that foundation program should be paid for by the state, using factors such as income, personal income, property values, and so forth. And it's reset annually based on current data. And so basically the way that our program works is they take the percentage of that the state pays toward that foundation program and use that same percentage to determine how much the state is going to pay for capital projects at community colleges, with a couple of exceptions. Our program, the lowest amount that the state can pay is 50% of a project. And so if the MSDE calculation comes to be less than 50%, we adjust that up a little bit. And 50% is what we pay for the capital projects at those counties. The other exception is for regional community colleges, which are colleges that are sponsored by more than one county. The statute says that the state aid is always 75% for those, and that's basically an incentive for the smaller counties to sponsor one school instead of having a bunch of smaller ones spread out. So if you turn to page 2 of my memo, which I believe is page 13 of the commission book, you can see the percentages that are set for FY26 for the 15 community colleges. As a reminder, Baltimore City Community College does not participate in this program because they're a state agency and the state pays 100% of their projects. And so this is the percent that will be for projects that received their initial funding in FY26. As you know, capital projects often are funded over several years, and so if a project receives funding for the first time in FY26, these will be the percentages for that project, and it'll carry through for the life of the project. The reason why we are setting this now is because colleges have to get their requests into us by July of this year, and in that request they also have to submit letters of intent from the counties basically saying that they have local support lined up. And so in the months between now and then, that's when they're approaching their counties, making sure they're lining up all the local support that they need, and they have to know how much they have to ask for, and that's why we set the percentages now. As I say, this is all set in statute. It's an informational item that we typically just present to you guys before we disseminate it out to the colleges. And so with that, I'll conclude my remarks unless you all have any questions.
Do any commissioners have any questions? All right, thank you very much, Mr. Schuster.
Thank you.
The next item is from Mr. Al Dorsett, the hardest working man in state government, the leader of MHEC's Office of Student Financial Assistance. Mr. Dorsett, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good morning, Secretary, Madam Chair, as well as commissioners. As Madam Chair indicated, the FAFSA has rolled out for the upcoming 24-25 academic year. Many complications that the federal government is going through. They have a website with a list of different issues that they're facing and working to resolve those issues. To give an example of one of those issues, they found that individuals that are grad students are receiving a Pell flag on their FAFSA, in which grad students aren't eligible for Pell. So that is one error, one issue that they're facing. Luckily, we at MHEC are able to work around that, where as we receive students' FAFSA, we look at several requirements for a student to be eligible for a GA or EA grant, which includes that the student has to be in an undergrad program. So I'm hoping that I can, as I share my screen, everybody will be able to see it, because one thing that I love to say that we are pushing out is the MHEC One app. The MHEC One app is a new application for Maryland Financial Assistance Programs that will allow all students to apply for all programs in one application, as well as replaces the MIS for the Maryland State Financial Aid application by including a section for undocumented students that are eligible for state aid to apply. So with that, I'll share my screen. And hopefully everybody can see my screen. Here I just start with our MHEC website, where students can easily select the first part is need money for college, start here. And with that, it takes individuals to the MHEC website that lists all our different programs, but also has the Maryland College Aid Processing System MDCAPS login. So what I've done is preparing for the future. I've created an account for my 15-year-old son because it's always good to prepare early for the future. So as a student logs in, you will see that they will see the new MHEC One app, and we are working to put some additional information there, just letting individuals know that it replaces the MISFIN. Students can apply for all programs. But the look and feel is totally different. When you look at the current MDCAP system, which is an antiquated system that we are working on the RFP to replace that system, you see kind of the look and feel of it. As you open up, or as a student opens up the MHEC One app, you see a totally different look and feel based off the current servicer, Interclips, what they have worked with us to develop. So with this, the individual opens up the MHEC One app. We have information on there indicating our deadlines for students to complete the FAFSA, that there is a section for undocumented students. Here's a link for students to look at all our different programs if they want additional information on our programs, but kind of where the student can kind of move forward after reading this, and we definitely want the student to read. So we've asked, put in there red, wait, please read below before moving forward. With that, many of the information that the student initially used to create their MDCAPS account is already imported in. Don't worry about the social. That is a big number that I've put in for my son. I'll correct it at a different point in time. But here, the individual can put their information. If an individual does not put certain information, it will mark it red, saying that, hey, we can't move forward before you put this information. So in our case, because I'm not going to fully go forward and submit the application, I'm going to put just our current location. And then here it will ask if the individual, and let me actually see if I can increase this just a little bit so individuals can see better. Here we'll ask certain questions like, has the individual relocated to Maryland within the past 12 months as a result of base realignment? I'm gonna say no. Has the individual been on active duty in Maryland? These are all aspects of residency. Is the individual eligible for in-state tuition? Is the individual, or will the individual be attending a Maryland institution? Now, what I will show you real quick is that if the individual says that they're not eligible for in-state tuition, or they will not be attending a Maryland institution, as the individual moves forward, they will only see programs in which an individual is eligible for that does not meet those requirements. So it is a smart logic type of application in which the students, what answers the student puts determines the next questions that come up. But for our purposes, I am going to indicate that I am eligible. So as you see, more programs show up. Now this application shows the programs that are open at this point in time. The application allows the individual to complete it, but if they want to go back because the program is open up at a later point in time, they can go back and update the application and we will receive the updated information. As you will see, we have a section where an individual says they're not eligible to file a FAFSA, undocumented student, and want to be considered for the EAGA or Promise Award, in which that individual can select. If that individual has completed a FAFSA and they are not looking to apply for any other program but EAGA or Promise, that individual does not need to do this application, and we have identified that to them. However, we also identified that the student can apply for several other programs in which the individual can select, and as being a smart logic script, the questions that will come on the remainder of the application will be focused to eligibility questions for those programs that the student has selected that they are interested in. But for our purposes, I'm going to select that I'm an undocumented student and I want to apply for the EAGA or Promise.
Mr. Dorsett, I think we have a question from Commissioner Serrano.
Sure.
Yeah, just a quick question. So, do the parents, is there any part of the application that the parents have to fill out?
No, so there is no part of the application that parents have to fill out. For an individual that is a dependent individual, what happens is the parent information is there for the parents to work with the student to fill out, or the parents can jump in the seat for the student and fill out that information. Once the student completes the application, we will have a requirement of a signature page for the parents, which is a fillable form with electronic signature that the student can upload from their MDCAP system. They can have the parent sign it and then load the form back up.
Would the parents have to put their social security number down?
Yes, within the system, they will have to put their information down.
So presumably, if like a student is like legal and their parents are undocumented, how would that work?
So when you have an individual that is legal and their parents are undocumented, we will still move forward with the individual putting, I believe, a nines as the federal government used to do for their parents' information.
Okay.
Commissioner,
But remember now as well, as for a undocumented student to be eligible for state aid, either the student or their parent must have filed taxes for the prior 3 years prior to them receiving an award. So if you have a legal student, well, in reality, if you have a student who is a citizen or a eligible non-citizen, that student is eligible to complete the FAFSA. So that student would not have to submit this information for that scenario.
I think we have two more questions. Commissioner Robinson and then Commissioner Warmack.
Hello, Commissioners. Good morning, everyone. I had a question about when you first started, you logged in and you said there's two options. One for those who choose to do in-state, or have a school that they're looking for in-state, and more options apply. And then there's once you click that, then they have a select amount of options that are available. Now, what about those students who not necessarily have received their admissions letter or acceptance letters for those schools that they're applying to outside of Maryland, but they're also applying to Maryland? So how would that work if they're looking at both institutions outside of Maryland and within Maryland?
So this right here is just looking at, is the student eligible for programs as a resident, right? So it's looking at, are you eligible for in-state tuition? Regardless if you will be attending a institution in state or out of state, you're still eligible for in-state tuition. In regards to, are you attending a Maryland institution in the current upcoming year, if that individual indicates yes, and hopefully they're interested, so they will say yes. But if they say no, it would only put other programs. With that, again, this is always tweaking. So as we look at it, we can change that wording on there so that individuals will have a better understanding and move forward. So that feedback is very important.
So if they don't know and they change their mind, how would they go in? They would go in and change it again?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yes, because that individual does have the opportunity to go back and update the application at any point in time.
Okay. Thank you.
And I believe we had one more question.
See if I can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mr. Dorsett, for a great presentation and a wonderful app. Just curious, how are the students finding out about that app? Are they working with their counselor? Are we sending this to eligible students? Is it driven from the FAFSA? How do they receive the information that this is available to them?
So that's where I'm going into next.
Oh, sorry. Thank you.
So we're already doing a press release. We've done some news interviews. We're also working with our communications and outreach team to inform individuals about this. We're scheduling a session with the nonprofit organizations that are part of the Next Generation Scholarship Program, as well as reaching out to other nonprofit organizations to inform individuals. And then we're working with the Maryland State Department of Education to inform individuals of this as well. So we're looking at every strategic opportunity to identify this opportunity to students. Even when we look at social media, we have a social media campaign pushing out to inform students as well.
And thank you very much. And also, what's the maximum eligible? So my assumption is they can apply for multiple what I call grants under this program. What's the maximum that they would be eligible for, or is there a maximum amount?
Amount. So the maximum amount is based off the cost of attendance of UMBC, I believe. Not going over that amount. Last time we checked, it was at $27,000 that a student can receive maximum and multiple scholarships. Of course, as tuition or fees go up, that maximum amount may increase, and that's the aspect of them receiving multiple different scholarships.
Is that the lifetime amount, or is that just each academic year?
That's an annual basis.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Dorsett, a related question. This is Cassie Motz. Related question about getting the word out to students and families and counselors. I know that I saw a press release go out just this morning. Does that mean that this one app is live now as we speak?
Oh, yes. This account that I created for my son is a live account.
Okay. So there have been a lot of... Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
This is ready, and we're already working with the vendor to get a report on how many students have actually already moved forward and completed.
So there have been a lot of questions in the community about the MISFA, the Maryland State Financial Aid application for students who aren't eligible for the Pell, namely undocumented students. So the answer to that question is there's no more MISFA. You now apply for the MISFA money. What used to be the MISFA, the money for undocumented students through the DREAM Act, is through this one app that is live now. And so we should be directing students and families and counselors who are interested in the MISFA to this one app. Is that right?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
So right here, we'll kind of see that these are questions that guide the individual to indicate if they're eligible for the eligibility as an undocumented student. The key that we really have right here is prior to us introducing the MHEC One app and having the MISFA used to stop students if they did not meet the guidelines of being eligible for in-state tuition. So if an individual identified that they did not, or their parents did not file taxes for 3 years, the application would say, stop, you can't move forward, you don't qualify. What we wanted to be able is allow students to still move forward so that we could run reports on how many individuals completed the application as undocumented students, but unfortunately were not eligible based off the state guidelines to provide reporting for future. So right here, these eligibility identifies if the student or parent filed taxes. If they indicate yes, then it moves forward to asking them additional information. If they indicate no, it moves them forward to the signature. It identifies to them after that through their email that they received we received their MHEC One app, and they can check on MDCAP's their status. And then under each program that they applied for, it would indicate that they are not eligible and why they are not eligible, because they don't meet those guidelines. Again, the purpose of that is really being able to provide how many undocumented students are not meeting our guidelines to be eligible for state aid because they're not eligible for in-state residency based off the legislative provisions. So as a smart app, depending on the questions that the student has, you will see that you have required or not required. It will jump over certain sections based off that to make the application very easy and able for the student to smoothly move forward with the information. So there, I'll conclude, because I don't want to take everybody through the whole app of trying to answer all the questions in that, but I'll open up to any additional questions that anybody may have.
Mr. Dorsett, it's Craig Williams. Thank you so much. This is an amazing step forward, and really appreciate the hard work of yourself and the commission to launch it. Just a couple of questions. I think I saw the press release this morning. Is the aggregate number of scholarship money available? Did I see 130 million? Or could you please clarify that?
So the 130 million is overall, and it's really a little bit over, but it's the overall of all scholarships that MHEC manages, at least with by the Office of Student Financial Assistance. When it comes to the Howard P. Rawlings program, the proposed budget for FY25, I believe, is 114 million.
Great. Thank you. And then in the income eligibility section of the app, does it pull in personal income tax information like the FAFSA does, or is it simply you write in the detail yourself?
You write in the detail yourself. So based off that, we will have a certain percentage of students that complete the MHEC One app that are ineligible to complete the FAFSA selected for verification. It'll be a small percentage just to make sure that the information being provided is correct.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I think Commissioner Tabor Stalen and then Commissioner Thompson.
Commissioner Howe had her
Oh,
hand.
Commissioner Howe. I'm sorry. I can't see the screen very well from where I'm sitting. Commissioner Howe.
All right, do you have any notion of how many applications will be filed and what percent of the applicants will be receiving money?
Not yet. We will be able to get that information once we move forward and more individuals complete the application. That's the beautiful thing about having the application and the individuals that are able to still complete it, even if they're not eligible, because we'll be able to see the total amount of students that completed the MHEC One app as a undocumented student that was not eligible to complete the FAFSA, and how many of them actually were awarded.
All right, thank you. And it was a really wonderful presentation, and I thank you for it.
Thank you.
Commissioner Thompson?
Yes. Mr. Dorsett, thanks to you and your team for a great product. It's something that we really could use in the state of Maryland and probably could be a model for other places. I wanted to know, similar to Commissioner Howe, in the past, what's the approximate number of students or families that have applied?
For the past 3 years, based off our records, we looked at about 900 applications. With those 900 applications, unfortunately, we weren't able to correlate the data yet of who received aid and who did not receive aid with those applications. So we are working on that as well to get kind of that history so that we can compare it to current and what's going on current now.
So about 900 per year is what you had.
Yes.
I'm sure that number will go up because it seems to be a very easy application that people can use. So I'm looking forward to hearing all of the buzz about it, especially on social media and as it gets disseminated through the communities. Thanks again.
Definitely, you're welcome. And let me add, the good thing about it is many students that had did the even mitzvah indicated that they were unaware of other programs that we had. So this allows students not only to complete the eligibility as an undocumented student, but also see other programs that MHEC has that they may be eligible to receive.
Yes, thanks again.
Was there another question? Did Commissioner Tabor Stalen, did you have a question? It's a little hard for me to see the screen, so I apologize. Anybody else online? Any of our commissioners have any questions? No? Okay.
No
Commissioner
questions.
Adams?
Did I hear a voice?
Okay.
Mr. Dorsett, thank you so much for the presentation. Two very basic questions. One, this application that I'm seeing right now, is it only available through a browser, or is there also a mobile app version?
Unfortunately, the current system does not allow for a mobile app version right now.
And that's totally fine. I haven't had a chance to try and look at it on a phone. My gut is, if you had a good designer, it's kind of application friendly. The other question, and you may not have this data, but even a ballpark would be helpful. So I've heard 900 applications in past.
Mm-hmm.
What percentage of the eligible population do you think that is? Is it in terms of, is that 5%, is that 10%? I believe and I hope it will go up. I'm curious what that will be, because my instinct is the communications question that a number of commissioners have asked is really important, because my gut is that's far below the total universe of Maryland students who could take part.
Yeah, I would definitely say it's probably about between 5 and 10%.
Okay. Got it. That's helpful. Thank you so much, and thank you for the great work on this, that this is going to make a lot of students' lives easier. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Mr. Dorset, I think the question on mobile app was an important one. Can you talk a little bit about our overall plan for changing the entire platform where some of the cloud-based technologies can be available? Can you talk about the RFP which is about to go out?
Sure. With the new RFP that's about to go out, we are looking for a servicer to come in, a company to come in to build really a futuristic system when you really look at it. My exposure with different systems such as Campus Logic, Illutions, a colleague, DataTel, just so many different ones have really identified what we have the ability to really do. Not only a mobile platform for individuals, but a parent platform, just where we kind of follow what the FAFSA does, where parents can actually sign in and connect with the student's account, so that if there's things that parents need to do, they can go into their portal and submit that, and it all comes into one. I'm looking at expanding it where a student can see their cost of attendance for each different program, where a student can see the information that we have in the system from them submitting their FAFSA or their MHEC 1 app. So just across the board, where you have several portals for individuals to see information, more information. You have mobile platforms for students to be able to submit their documents online, to have a chat with individuals that are working on the different programs. So we are looking at having a chat, I guess, area or variable in there that individuals can chat directly with us that are managing their programs to get better assistance with their application and with their awards.
My mic to work. Mr. Dorset, just one more quick question. Just remind me again. I know you told us this several months ago, but what's the amount of money that has been allocated to students through this through the total grant program, right? So, yeah.
Through the total program, it was 112 million, with 2 million of that going to the campus-based educational assistance grant that we give out to the campuses. So money being awarded directly to students through MHEC was 110 million. The recent budget proposed, I believe, takes it up to 114 million. Okay. There's also a group, there's a study group for the Howard P. Rawlings program based off House Bill 923 that was passed during 2023 legislative session. That's really looking at the legislation and really going through to provide some comments, suggestions that we can share with legislation of concerns that we see within the current provisions of the program.
Thank you, Mr. Dur. Thank you. Appreciate that. Appreciate the update on the information and the new additional resources for students. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions from commissioners? Well, I want to join my fellow commissioners in thanking you, and I think that you get the gist of our questions. We're extremely excited about this one app that is not a phone app yet, but online, and we're very interested in making sure that the word gets out to students and families and counselors, and we appreciate your outreach efforts. You and I have talked offline about outreach efforts, and I know you and the communications team, I see Mr. Coley here in the room, have a plan to really get the word out. So if there's anything we as a commission can do to help you with that or to coordinate with other state agencies, please let us know, because this is a tool that everybody should have access to. Before you leave us, if you could just talk a little bit about what MHEC is doing to allay students' concerns with respect to the bumpy federal rollout. I know we as a commission voted at our last hearing in December to allow MHEC to push back some state deadlines. If you could just talk a little bit about that, remind folks who may be watching online about the relaxation of the deadlines and how that's going to be helping students, again, in an effort to be as student-focused as possible.
Sure. Understanding with all the kind of bumps and obstacles that students and families are facing with the recent changes of the FAFSA, MHEC, with the approval of Maryland and support of Maryland, has pushed back the deadline date for individuals to complete the free application for federal student aid or the MHEC One app and be eligible or be considered eligible for the Howard P. Rawlings program to June 1. So with June 1, it gives individuals, it really kind of pushes out that 6-month time frame that was really there for individuals when they could do the FAFSA October 1st prior. Additionally, what we've done is we're training the staff on actually going through the FAFSA and completing the FAFSA themselves so that as students and parents call, we could assist them with those different questions. We also are taking the information from the federal government about different issues that they're facing and doing updates, working with our communications department to update that on our website so individuals see what's going on and how the federal government is resolving those issues to keep them aware.
Great. Thank you so much. And thank you to you and your team for all you do. Dr. Dukes, Commissioner Dukes has a question.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. And thanks again, as everyone has said, I want to echo the work that's been done in this area. So could you talk about, Mr. Dorsett, is there a role for the financial aid offices at our local institutions to play? And how do you ensure that in the areas where necessary, that the remarks, the questions, the answers to questions are the same? So they're not hearing different messages based on, the need to make sure that we're articulating the same or a similar message, even though we understand there may be some distinct differences among types of institutions.
So definitely, we're working with the FACT committee in exploring, what issues that are being faced by the federal government right now when institutions are looking at packaging students. Institutions, of course, package students with financial aid at different times. Everybody's kind of waiting for the federal government to release the students' institutional student information records, what we call ISERs. And as they start releasing those are other discussions that the institutions and MHEC are having. Also identify, even with the MHEC One app, how institutions can also promote the MHEC One app for students to complete, putting it on their web pages, providing information to students, letting them know that it's open, letting them know that the deadline date has been pushed back to June 1st. So, that was one thing when we came back from the winter break. Definitely in our first FACT meeting that we had in January, we went over the change in the deadline. We gave them a review of the MHEC One app. We discussed the different things that are going on with the FAFSA and how we kind of connect and prepare for those different issues that are being faced right now. So it's definitely a collaboration between us and the institutions, as well as us and MSDE and just overall throughout Maryland, as much as we collaborate, saying the same message to individuals.
Right. And I would also think entities that our own chair is involved with, those nonprofit organizations that sit in communities, that just to make sure that the talking points are out there and that we're all talking from, the same direction, et cetera. Because I do agree that I think the number of applications will increase, and especially as you've looked at sort of being flexible with deadline dates, given the situation in which we find ourselves. Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.
Commissioner Serrano, question.
Yeah, there was some talk about like the inflation adjustment at the federal level, and that was kind of being factored in. like, where is the Department of Education on that one? And are they still considering that, or?
So I think at this point in time, they worked out their formula of, how they calculate a student aid index. For any additional adjustments, they would look to do that in the next upcoming years, just because they're having the complications that they're having now with the current application and individuals being able to complete that. Really, they looked at the aspect of they increased the amount. I believe they budgeted about 14 billion of funds for students to complete the FAFSA and be eligible for the Pell Grant. So they're looking at having enough funds right there. But as far as any adjustments in the calculation, they've held off on that. And, if anything, they'll look to do it in the future, not right now.
And then the other question I have is, so the new form, like, it would require both parents to fill out their sections for their contribution?
So the new form looks at the aspect of both parents, whether they have a joint tax return or they have a individual tax returns, combining their information and putting it into the form. So it's really them getting together and seeing it and saying, okay, well, if we have a joint return, we give them the numbers on the tax return or the locations of where each information is, and they put that information. We indicate on there if they have separate returns, that they should combine those numbers together to put that information there. So whether it's adjusted gross income, whether it's taxes paid, they would put the information together from both of their returns.
Okay, and then the last question I have.
No, no problem.
So you have, say, hypothetically, you have you have a divorced family, so you have either kind of single parent household, maybe the dad or the mom still kind of in the picture. They both have to fill out this form for the child to move forward?
No, we follow the same example of the FAFSA. So unless a student, so the FAFSA requires, just like us, if a student's both biological parents, if they're unmarried but they live in the same household, then yes, both of them have to put in their information. However, if the parents are divorced or separated and the student lives with one parent, then the parent that the student identifies that provides support for that student puts in their information. Now, if that parent is remarried, then that parent and their spouse would put in their information. So it's all based off that student's specific situation.
Okay. And then the final question. Mixed status household. So you have a family that maybe one parent is undocumented or maybe both parents are undocumented. On the form, does it state that this information that you're providing here will solely be used for this? It's not going to be used for any other?
Yes. And again, remember, this is for undocumented students. It's not, if the parents are undocumented, then yes, they need to meet the requirements, or the student needs to meet the requirements in order to be eligible for state aid. But really the key is, if you have a student that is a eligible citizen or eligible non-citizen, that student is going to go and complete the FAFSA. And their parents are going to use the FAFSA, where the FAFSA has now, even though they're running into complications, that undocumented individuals now can get a ID to be able to sign the FAFSA. This is more so on undocumented students, that parents are undocumented as well. As long as those parents have done a tax return or eligible to do a tax return, then that student would put their information in. If that student indicates that neither of my parents have filed a tax return, it's not going to ask them for that additional information. It's going to move them forward, because in reality, those individuals would not be eligible based off the current state legislative provisions.
Okay. Cool. Thank you.
Commissioner Tabor Stalen.
Thank you. Do have a question this time. I'm curious if you have any software where you're able to see what is happening when folks are going through the process. I know at our organization, we're able to see at a back end where people are getting tripped up, how much time they're spending on different areas. And even just now, I was playing around myself, and it feels like there are a few errors I'd love to be able to report. So would love to understand how you are catching errors, and then if there's a way for us to support in that usability testing.
So currently, that is something we can look into based off our current system. It's very hard. Even though this is a new look and a new feel, it still relates and connects with that system. So we are asking the vendor to see if there's any type of reporting that can come back on individuals and how long they spend that much time on there. If individuals stop completing it, we're waiting to hear back from the vendor. They really pushed, and we pushed them hard to really have this ready. So they're just now settling down and getting to that next aspect. So again, that is something that I could follow up with the commission on to see what our vendor can do or has done for us, and see what reports I can provide to the commission about that.
Okay, and I think if that's where we can provide that cover, that the commission is very interested in seeing time on page error reports. As an example, it appears you actually have to put in a social security number. Right now, the instructions to put in zeros, it appears that if you do so, someone has already done it, and it says that that record already exists. So we'll definitely want to fix that right away, that you don't need a social security number.
Okay, so you did the zeros or nines?
It says to do zeros, and it doesn't say how many zeros. And then when you do, it says someone has already applied with that social security number of all zeros. And so you can't move forward. So that's, and I'm not in any way, I run a technology company. I know how difficult these rollouts are. And when you move with speed, you have these errors, but I think we all want folks to have as good an experience as possible, and just want to make sure that we are doing error testing rapidly.
Yeah, no problem. We definitely are. So thank you for that. And I'll definitely put that in immediately with the vendor so that we can work that out.
Great. Thank you. Any other questions? Commissioner Serrano.
All right, this might tie into a later presentation, but I think on the on family income, would it be possible, since now that we're getting parents reporting how much they were making or how much they could contribute, would it be possible to develop a metric that we could say the tuition as a percentage of family income now that we have this being a part of the application?
So when you say the tuition is a percentage of family income, you're looking at what the family income is compared to the tuition. I'm just making sure I'm clear on what you're asking. What the tuition is, what the family income is, and what percentage of that tuition is compared to the family income, correct?
Yeah.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and we could so basically from here on out, we could monitor the financial kind of the ability of a student to be able to pay for their schooling, and then monitor whether they're graduating on time or so forth, right?
So graduation on time, I don't have those numbers in regards to when an individual actually graduates. I have the number of payments a student has received, which would be kind of an overall. I think that's something that we could talk with MHEC's research department and see, where we can correlate that or what information we have to make those connections.
Okay, cool.
Commissioner Burnham.
Thank you. Good morning. I really appreciate the presentation as well, Mr. Dorsett. I want to make sure that I still have an overall view of the forest, in addition to the rather detailed look we've had at a lot of these issues. Am I to understand that a Maryland student who's getting ready to go to college now can go to the MHEC One app and complete that, and the data that the student puts into that flows to both Maryland Aid applications as well as the federal financial aid?
No, it's still separate. So
they will have to do two then.
No, so it all depends. If you have a Maryland student that is eligible to complete a FAFSA, that student can complete the FAFSA, and automatically when we receive that FAFSA, that student will be reviewed for eligibility for the Howard P. Rawlings program as well as the Promise program, depending on if that student identifies that they'll be attending a community college. Okay. So the federal government covers that.
All right.
So you do a FAFSA, you're reviewed for federal aid, and you're reviewed for state aid as long as you're a Maryland resident and you list a Maryland institution on your FAFSA, because that's the only way that the federal government will give us a copy of that student's FAFSA record.
Okay.
If you are eligible for to fill out a FAFSA and you want to apply for additional programs, then that student would go on the Impact One app and select any and all of the additional programs outside of the Howard P. Rawlings and the Promise that they want to apply for. So the firefighters program, cybersecurity, police officer scholarship, so on and so forth, that they can apply.
All right. Thanks for that clarification.
You're welcome.
And just to add, again, for our undocumented students, if you're not eligible for the FAFSA, the One app is the only way to get the DREAM Act money for undocumented students. Formerly, you'd use the MISFA. The MISFA is no more. It's now the One app.
Yes.
Correct? Okay. Great. All right. Well, thank you, Mr. Dorsett. You can tell there's a lot of interest and enthusiasm about the work of you and your team. We really appreciate all that you've done and continue to do. I know it's going to be a busy season, but thanks for being here and for your presentation today.
Thank you, and thank you for your support.
We'll next turn to the Department of Academic Affairs, Dr. Dow.
Good morning. Nope. Oh. Good morning, Chair, and good morning, Commissioners. Thank you. I am going to turn the time over to our Director of Academic Affairs, Trish Gordon-McCown. She will provide updates. You have biannual reports in your commission book, and we will provide just some broad numbers of recent approvals. So I turn the time over, and I will pull up your slide deck.
Thank you. Okay, I think I understand why everybody struggles. There's a... Okay. No. Hello?
Yep. Good.
You can hear me? Okay. Good morning, everyone. Again, I am Trish Gordon-McCown. I'm the Director of Academic Affairs at the Commission. Good morning, Commissioners, Dr. Rye. I am presenting the biennial reports. Just as a reminder, the report covers a 6-month period. This particular period is from July 1st to December 31st of 2023. There are 4 total reports, so we'll start with the private career school report. That team is our Career and Workforce Education Unit, and they currently have a FTE of 5 individuals. Okay, that's all right. So for the private career school report that you have there, a brief summary is that for this review period, we had 3 new private career school applicants. They're listed there for you: a Maryland Electrolysis, Pro Plus Skin Academy, and Metasage, which is an aesthetics, has an aesthetics program. There were 3 approvals withdrawn as a result of closures. Those approvals that were withdrawn are VIP Dental and the Accounting and Bookkeeping Center. Both of those were due to low enrollment. And the Maryland Bartending Academy, which was a recent closure as a result of, they've been in business for many decades, and the owner decided to retire. There are a total of 127 training provider questionnaires. Just as a reminder, the training provider questionnaires are the initial application. We loosely use the word application. It's an inquiry that the entity submits to determine if they require approval from the Secretary to operate. So we had 40 not exempt. Those are examples of entities that are required to have approval by the Secretary to operate. We had 10 exemptions and 77 not regulated. We have an upcoming workshop. That comment there relates to every quarter we hold workshops for entities that are thinking about proposing new training programs, operating new schools. So the team will host quarterly new applicant workshops. They go over the entire process and give the applicants a chance to ask questions. So that's a 2-hour workshop every quarter. If you don't mind,